The Gates of Camino.
Just as Eve was born from Adam's rib, so Myron died to give birth to Myra. Did Myron take his own life, you will ask? Yes and no is my answer. Beyond that, my lips are sealed. Let it suffice for me to say that Myron is with me, and that I am the fulfillment of all his dreams. Who is Myra Breckinridge? What is she? Myra Breckinridge is a dish. And don't you ever forget it, you motherfuckers, as the children say nowadays.
Don't mother me.
It seems to be coming this way.
What's going down, man?
What's cracking? Myra, finally.
Man, yeah, this has been one we talked about for a while.
Finally. This is a wild one, man. Kudos to you for rocking with it and what so did you rewatch it? Did you get a chance?
I did. Before I even, the first time I ever saw the movie was because of you. The first thing I ever saw about it was that AMC documentary in like the 90s. Remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
So I remember watching that.
Caught that. I think I saw that on the DVD, on my copy of the DVD. There's like, it's like a behind the scenes
backstory,
like a 20,
right? Yeah,
like a 23-minute, vignette where she
that played
on it.
TV back in the day, and that's when I first heard of the movie.
Raquel,
and then,
no,
yeah, that's when I first saw it, and I first heard of it, and then you had a copy. That's when I was like 10 years ago or so. You were like, "Oh, here, watch it." And I remember I didn't like it, but then I watched it last night. I kind of liked it this time.
Okay, what are we talking about here? We're talking about Myra Breckinridge, rated X. Rated X.
Give a rundown because you know it pretty well.
This is 1970 from 20th Century Fox. It's a big Technicolor, lavish adaptation of a Gore Vidal book by the same name. And in the book was more of a literary success, the book itself.
Yeah.
But it was still wild material. Essentially it's about a man who, first thing right at the beginning, I mean, this is just the movie, and the book, I'm told, is not much different, but did really veer off in some of the stuff we're going to talk about, which is like those little fucked up clips that intercut back and forth.
Yeah, we're going to talk about all that. Yeah.
I was thinking about it. Had this movie not had any of those clips, I wonder how long the actual, solid original I don't think it'd be that long, to
like
be honest.
10 maybe, or something like that.
So it's about a man who has a sex change, and it's not very like graphic, but it is in a way. It's weird. It's like graphic in a way that was, anybody can think of how, things were, I guess, 50, 60 years ago now, This is wild material. This guy, the movie opens with him getting a sex change, and he becomes this character that is like an alter ego of himself. And so the movie and the story really play with like gender roles, and it really thinks it's sending this kind of message and this kind of critique of Hollywood, and gender assignments and gender roles get flipped throughout the movie. It's kind of a running theme, but the movie itself is such a mess. It is such a mess in getting there that it's fun for us to watch.
Oh, it's amazing. And it's Myron turning into Myra Breckinridge. Yeah. And it's played by Rex Reed and
the critic, the movie critic, Rex Reed, that the very same one. And he already was a movie critic. Like, it wasn't,
he was already
like
famous at that time.
Yeah. And they said that he was giving, interviews on and like getting on talk shows. He'd film in the morning, and then he'd be on Dick Cavett at night, or he'd be on Johnny Carson talking about what a nightmare that the production was. So that sort of elevated in real time. It elevated the camp factor of this movie, and it has such a wild plot that, like, to begin to describe it is just like, It's a lot
he
to
turns
process,
into Myra, who tries to take back over the acting school that's owned by Uncle Buck, who is John Huston.
Your fave and mine, John, the one and only John Huston.
The one and only.
Has a pretty big role in this, right? So he has a pretty big role in I think anyway. And so she plays Myra now, which, I think we should first make notice of the fact that so Rex Reed looks like a pretty standard guy, and he goes from looking like how he looks to becoming Raquel Welch, who plays the female, which, as I think now, looking back on like a modern audience, we can say I think we all know now it doesn't really work like that. like without getting too much into the whole transgender discussion, we all kind of know better now.
54 years ago.
54 years ago, I think we all kind of know better that now you don't just kind of go in, and that's really how it's depicted at the very beginning.
Oh yeah, he's like, cut it off.
Yeah, he's in stirrups, he's in stirrups, and he's like, cut it off. And it's John Carradine, as the surgeon, and he's all doped up himself, and he's got his cigarette the whole time as he's like his big old ash at the end of his cigarette as he's about to cut this guy's dick off, basically. And this again is 1970, so many of us even in today don't understand what that looks like, and so it's shot very suggestively, very like the it's just outside of frame sort of thing, but still wild for this time. And so then all of a sudden, we're made to believe, okay, so he has his surgery, and then it's sort of like kind of I don't know what they call it in movies, but it's like sort of a magic transition to the opening credits, where you now have a fully formed Raquel Welch as Myra dancing up and down Hollywood Boulevard, right?
And they're kind of like an alter ego of each other. Like he still exists in a weird way.
Correct.
Yeah, because they're kind of in the movie
odd.
together.
It's very, very, very odd, which it contributes to the like camp badness of it,
Oh, and
he doesn't go
away. Me, what it reminded me of was when they would cut to old movies. So all throughout the movie, like you were saying earlier, probably like 20, 30 minutes of footage.
A good.
It reminded me of Dream On HBO.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. That's actually exactly what they were trying to do. This, I think, I was trying to remember what that show was. That's what it was. The one with Brian Benben. It was on HBO called Dream On. You're absolutely right. It was,
but they did it like really clever and perfectly and quick. This was like a little overkill at times.
Yeah. So if you understand that sort of reference point, then that's exactly what starts to happen. And you're just, it does take a minute to sort of understand the vibe of what clips they're showing, why they're, you know what I mean? Why it's intercutting. He intercuts with the bomb, like the atom bomb, test, right? Like, and so you're just kind of, it takes a minute, I actually think it takes a second or third watch, like we've done here, is to even like get a grip on like you said, they're trying to do like Dream On, where it's like the character is, something's happening, but it's like, cut away in their imagination, and it's a clip of, and that was the thing I read, was that the director, everybody seemed to blame the director, but
Michael Sarn,
British guy, but that he basically had free reign of all of Fox's clips, which, that's what they basically told him, like, you can intercut it with any of our library of clips. So that's where you get like Shirley Temple.
Yeah. No, there was something Temple legal Black. About her, right?
Oh my God. Not Shirley Temple Black, poor thing.
Shirley Temple Black. That's right.
So by this point, Shirley Temple was all grown up. She was all grown up.
Yeah.
And she happened to be a U.S. ambassador an ambassador to the UN for Ronald Reagan, who was our movie star president, right? Mm-hmm. Well, so she got Reagan to call the studio and tell him that you better take out the stuff of Heidi.
No, this was 1970, so it was Nixon, right?
It would have been maybe, I guess, Reagan.
Reagan was the governor of California.
He was governor of California then. Yeah, I remember she called. Yeah, it was 1970. You're right. So she called somebody, but it would have been Nixon then, because she said it's the White House call.
That's even better.
Even better, right? But that, if you can imagine using Shirley Temple in a really inappropriate context, and it still did it though. Like there were still clips of Shirley Temple.
There were still clips of her, yeah.
and I don't ask me how I know all about Shirley Temple, because my my mom, shout out to my mom, loves Shirley Temple. She's got all her movies, so like I've seen a bunch of them. So when I saw this, I was like, what the
Oh, I love
fuck?
it.
It was wild to me. And it's a little like tongue in cheek, but it can be distracting and hard to follow. I actually watched, it was an appearance that Raquel made on the, what was his name? The Dick Cavett show. Correct. I was like, I just said it. So she was on with Janis Joplin, and I watched it, and when you're listening to them talk, there's little, they can kind of they're telling little things about the time and place and what happens and stuff. And so
right.
Raquel mentioned that she was at a screening with Janis, that Janis Joplin went to see Myra Breckinridge in the theater. So
wow.
Janis kind of had her own little critiques of it in the moment. She goes, I don't know, it was hard to follow, man. It was really hard to follow. And Raquel was like, well, it is. Then she was like, okay, and Raquel was like, well, it's about change, and meaning like sex change, all kinds of change. And Janis just goes, I'll drink to that. Oh, it was classic. But even she couldn't follow it. It was like jumps around. And so with knowing that Raquel Welch is gorgeous and she's fully formed woman. And then that's the other thing that gets a little confusing is you start to see scenes where Rex Reed, who's Myron, is like popping back up, and he's in the reflection, or like sometimes he's flat out a third person in the room with Myra and let's say, a very young Farrah Fawcett, right?
Yeah, Farrah Fawcett, her first movie, right?
First movie, right? And what I feel about any movie that just like is universally panned by the people who made it is just like right there on my at the height of the top of my list. I love that kind of, and all of the, even Farrah was like, I saw how oh my god, we even got to Mae West. So she said Mae West and Raquel were total nightmares to work with, and they were taking their own shit out on Farrah. And Farrah was like afraid to come out of her dressing room and deal with. I know, poor Farrah Fawcett.
Lee Majors at that time. Yeah. So let's talk about Mae West. Get this fucking nut.
Man. What I will say in this rewatch, for some reason, I found myself sort of like diving more into Mae West than I had, because Raquel's kind of, you can kind of get her done in one conversation as far as her, and I think, we've touched on her. What did we do? We did it. The Last of Sheila, right? I was thinking of the connective thread there, and this would have been around the same time. What was Last of Sheila? What was that?
That was, I believe, 74. So this was a few years before that. Yeah.
This was before that, because this crashed and burned her career. This took it all down, but there were so many exterior
if it
forces.
Was made right, you could tell watching it. It was like kind of like a sloppy version of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls,
which came out the same year. That was the only other X rating movie that came out that year.
It could have been good. Like she actually, to me, she was good in this, I thought.
Oh my. Well, so, okay, we're talking about Raquel. She gives the most like earnest sort of like, transatlantic accent, sort of like, the kind of old Hollywood school of acting. That's how she, for some reason, and they don't really ever say, but for some reason she kind of embodies that. I guess they kind of reference it because
of the way Rex spoke, I think.
Yeah, well, because he and she, Rex and Myra and Raquel, their character is like a big movie buff, like a big movie Hollywood, an aficionado of the golden age of Hollywood. And so she's always like preoccupied with talking about how wonderful the 1935 to 1945. Like she's just very she's kind of an asshole about the old movies, And so one thing I was reading about it was that like Raquel Welch was saying that it was trying to go for like recapturing some of that screwball kind of element from the 30s. And I just thought, like you said, it could have been done well. I thought a good comparison that was, if they were going for screwball 30s redone in the 70s, I don't know if you ever saw What's Up, Doc with Barbara Streisand. Like that's an example to me of taking the like screwball elements that came from the Hepburn and Cary Grant sort of comedy era, bring it to that modern age. That's an example, I think, of it done well. this movie really kind of goes there for shock value, and it achieves it in a way that
Well,
like
didn't they actually not use Gore Vidal's script because they wanted
correct.
to get a more shocking one?
Yeah, yeah,
Jesus, that's
correct.
Zanuck and Brown who wanted
Yeah,
that.
Brown, who was
David
married
Brown
to,
and
and
Cheryl Zanuck.
Brown, I guess Brown was married to Helen Gurley Brown, who wrote Sex and the Single Girl, which came out is so. In other words, that there was a flavor that year of between 68, 69, and 70. Anything like the old studio system had fallen, and the old production code was gone. So they were starting to use the word sex, for example, in the title. So that's where you get Sex and the Single Girl. That was another movie that came
Okay.
out kind of similar, and it's like they're trying to just be tittillating, but it's really mild compared to Myra Breckinridge. I would say to its credit, you've never seen some things earlier than this. This is the first time a major studio depicts a gender reassignment surgery and a trans character and just all this stuff. It really sort of, breaks those taboos at a if you haven't seen it and that's something, if that's a topic that's relevant to you, I would say this is mandatory viewing. But it can be offensive. You can't see it with you can't view it with like a really modern woke lens and try. You can't really like,
No.
yeah, you just can't because like you said, it was like 54 years ago.
Yeah, you guys gotta have fun with this one and not give it any thought.
Yeah, which I think is where Mae West kind of comes in.
Oh, fucking Mae West. Okay, yeah, those
she's
songs
77. Man, I know but okay, so that's the thing. That kind of goes back to like what I was my favorite thing is those movies that are fucked up because, somebody let their ego, get out of control, or somebody, had a certain thing in their contract and so they had to do something a certain, those kinds of, old sort of studio mistakes and those kind of errors are when you get something like this where you have Mae West sort of like was her first color film. This was her very first movie in color, if you can believe that. And so she had come out of retirement. She was okay. So here's also, I don't know if you knew this, but there was an urban legend, I'll say, that Mae West was actually the real Mae West died sometime in 1950. And the Mae West that like emerged after that time was supposed to be her brother in drag, because people would say when they saw her in her later years, which this movie, and she did one other movie that I haven't seen it. It's called Sextet.
Okay.
But people would say, we see, is that an Adam's apple? And they'd say her hands look really manly and big. So there was an urban legend rumor that Mae West that we saw at this era when in Myra Breckinridge, she's like 77 years old.
Oh, I love it.
She herself was a transgender or a drag queen. Raquel Welch even said, when I saw her, I thought she was a dock worker in drag. And
man,
it just started this whole like Richard Gere Gerbil-esque kind of thing about Mae West, if you can believe that. I never knew that. So yeah, so she played for no fucking reason. I take it back. There is a reason. Remember how I was saying that it's about this changing of the gender roles? That's what Myra Breckinridge really kind of thought it was doing, thought it was like the message it was sending.
Yeah.
So that's where we have Mae West.
Gore Vidal wrote it. It wasn't like you had some,
But, I don't know that Gore, I didn't read the book, but I don't know that Gore, which, the book definitely didn't have the intercutting, the Dream On style intercutting of the old movies, which is distracting. I would actually say that's probably, in retrospect, that's probably the worst thing about this movie.
It's too distracting.
Is the intercuts. And the only reason I call it out is because I wonder, there has to be somebody who's can edit those out. You know what I mean? And like
string it back together. It's never been done.
Just to see, I would love to see how that would flow without those distracting minutes of, of cutaways.
I originally thought when I first saw it, I thought they put those in there to help because the movie was such a mess and they were just doing something to give it some type of, but I guess he wanted that from the beginning, though, they said. Like they said, I was reading Michael Sarn was a real difficult. Like they made it look like made it look like he was the kind of a victim of everybody, but they said he was pretty hard on all of them.
He encouraged them to bicker back. He encouraged their infighting and stuff. Oh yeah, it said that he would spend hours, quote unquote, thinking while everybody cast and crew on full salary at the studio backlot at Fox, just waiting, sitting around waiting.
I need to start doing that, get some thinking time in.
7 hours sometimes. And then they said that, and if you watch the picture, there is a totally unnecessary sequence where I guess Myron as Rex Reed fantasizes about Farrah Fawcett's character, and she's like not rolling around, but she's like she's in an all black backdrop with this big, like several $1,000 cake that they said they just had like thousands of dollars of food brought in.
Yeah.
And he just spent all this time photographing the food and it like was in the movie for like 5 seconds.
Right.
You know, so it has very
that was really stupid,
weird elements.
That scene too.
Dumb. It honestly, because it didn't add anything to it could be there or not, which kind of like the movie clips itself, you know, it just kind of makes you think like, damn, if you just, you know, like, I don't know, maybe he needed to add a good like 30 minutes to it. You know, that's a good way to do it. Can you imagine though, like how short the movie would be without all of those?
I mean, it's based off a novel. It's not from a lack of material, you know, it's like, what did you guys do?
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. What were you guys doing? Fuck.
Yeah. It had such a good cast though, like the you know, from like just the people like we said, like John Carradine and stuff, but it had like, you know, we had Jim Backus and Andy Devine and Kathleen Freeman, that old lady, you know, she's awesome.
And the guy who plays Rust. So okay,
Monty Landis,
right? We're gonna have to get into the pegging, right? Into
the who played that guy?
So I don't know. I mean, I don't think he did much else after. I'll look him up, but you know, basically, back to the story, which is that Myra convinces John Huston that she is actually the widow of Myron, who, you know, left her his share of this movie studio or this acting academy that he runs in Westwood, which is a very valuable piece of property. So she's there to collect. He says, no, I need to verify that. In the meantime, you know, you can work here. And so that's where she starts teaching classes. That's where we meet Farrah Fawcett. And the guy who plays Rusty he didn't do anything else besides this, Roger Herron. And so this guy's, you know, real, you know, typical beefcake guy. And she, as Myra, decides she wants to basically overthrow what are considered the sexual power dynamics. So that's where you get into rape, which is like usually a man rapes a woman. So in this case, as Myra, she gets this guy tied up over a medical table, and this happens in the book where she sodomizes him with a strap on. But the way it's filmed is like Dr. Strangelove. It's filmed like Dr. Strangelove riding the nuke as it's falling, you know? She is like, woo, yeah. She's just like bucking on him, and he's screaming, you know, bloody murder. And she's done with him, and it's so like overdone. It's so overcooked, you know. There's so many elements. It's cutting back and forth to clips of Judy Garland and clips of like the Marx Brothers and shit. And she's literally like sodomizing him, and then cuts back to the, you know, she's on a swinging back and forth in the black room where the cakes were and stuff. And she's like, I'm coming. And then they show somebody on a roller coaster. It's so wild that like, you got to see it almost a second time. Like, what the fuck? What? And then you're like, wait, okay. So she's done with him. So then she still as Myra, as Raquel Welch, she decides she wants to dyke it out with Farrah Fawcett's character, because that's what will, you know, that's what will complete her plan, right? Apparently she feels like she's been sent here to sort of, you know, upend the sexual dynamics, and what better way to do, which I have no idea how this logic arrives, because I guess it's from the book. I don't know. So she decides, well, I'm going to try to, you know, dyke it up with Farrah Fawcett's character. But Farrah's like, no, you know what? I missed Rusty, the guy she sodomized. And then so she sends Rusty to go be with Mae West as one of her, like, because Mae West, that's the thing. So that's the other sort of flip gender dynamic. Like the casting couch is usually a male director, a male casting agent, you know, having, you know, usually young ingenue girls on the couch. So in this way, Mae West's character, for no fucking reason at all, she like is a casting agent, and she only does male clients, beefcake clients, which is where we get a young Tom Selleck. Yeah, we get a young Tom Selleck. Do you remember her joke in that? She asked the guy, "Oh, how," and it's Mae West doing Mae West, and she was like, "Oh, how tall are you without your horse?" And he goes, "I'm 6'7". Oh, well, let's talk about forget the 6 foot. Let's talk about the 7 inches. Like she's just cracking them, cracking
She's
little
just
dirty
being Mae
jokes.
West. It's
That's
like
all
kind of
she's
ridiculous.
doing. It's so ridiculous, and it's almost like, yeah, I guess this movie cuts back and forth to weird fucking clips. I guess why not? Why not throw Mae West in there? It's
Yeah.
so it's so wild and really like incongruent and kind of hard to follow, So
Now,
it's one of those
by
that
the
suffer
end,
too
though,
many hands,
she right, but by the end, she decides to turn back to Myron.
Well, see, okay, is that
that
how
what
you
it?
read it? Because okay, so I wanted to talk about the
Another thing I was
ending.
going to ask you too was I thought Myra always had a dick. I thought the dick never got cut off.
Yeah, because okay, because you're right. So right before the very ending, the right, yeah. So she goes, so she's basically had her way with Farrah and the guy Rusty, right? So she's had her way with them. So she's ready to collect, and so she goes to John Huston's character, who again runs the acting studio,
And he
and
has
she
his
says,
lawyer, who's George
his lawyer's
First.
there,
That guy's
says,
awesome.
right? The lawyer's like, well, you don't, Myron, there's no death certificate for him. So he's not dead. So you don't get anything. And so she's like, you're right. He's not dead. And that's when Raquel Welch jumps on the dais. And it's a dais, it's like, it's not just like it's like a lectern, what like a, a member of Congress would sit at, it's like a hearing desk.
Yeah,
she jumps on top of it, pulls her panties down, lifts her skirt, and we don't see anything. But yeah, we're left to believe that like either I read it in the book. It says she kept. Oh, you know why? Because he goes, well, there's the ball game. That's what John Huston says. So we're led to believe that she kept her balls,
right?
But cut the dick off, which I think might make sense. That might actually explain kind of like his erraticness.
Yeah, because I didn't know how he was able. Because I always took it that he turned back after Farrah Fawcett was like, "I like you, but if you were a man," or something like that. Yeah. And then, because at the end when he's Rex Reed in the hospital, I thought that was like,
so before that, okay, so you're right. So before that happens, right? So Raquel Welch kind of does her final move, which is to show John Huston whatever she's got down there. And his reaction is, well, there's the ball game.
Yeah, he has to pay up.
He has to pay up. And so then what I believe happens is, what happens is Raquel Welch as Myra is sort of like strolling down the street. She's walking through the streets in Century City. Very specifically, she's in Century City. Mm-hmm. And so she gets run over and hit by a car, but the person driving that car is Rex Reed, as Myron. So what I read about it was that Myron felt that Myra had gotten too powerful, too big, and he killed her. Basically, he runs her over, and then that's the last we ever see of Myra. And then transition to Rex Reed, Myron waking up in the hospital, and we find out that he was in the hospital from a car accident. And one of the nurses is Farrah Fawcett. In other words, it's very like Wizard of Oz. Like you can see where, it was just a dream. There is a picture of mm-hmm. Raquel Welch on the magazine cover near his bedside. In other words, just like the Wizard of Oz when Dorothy wakes up, so-and-so, you were this and you were there. All of the elements of what we just watched, you can see where as Myron, he passed out and woke up. And basically, which I think sort of doesn't help with this movie is it's kind of like what they do, it was all a dream kind of a thing. Okay. That sort of didn't help it story-wise, because that's usually, come on, like, what do you think of that? What do you usually think of? It was all a dream.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely had, like the version I saw had a black and white ending, but I heard
so you saw, they said that's the director's version.
So that really hammers home the dream. The whole thing was a dream. But whenever I was reading, I believe when I was reading something about the book, they said the quick synopsis was Myra Breckinridge gets a sex change to become a woman, then gets a sex change to become back to being a man. So that was just always in my head. I assumed that. But when you talked about at the end being all a dream, I think because of 1970, they may have had that forced on them to put that in there, though. So
wild.
Where we got Jim Backus as the doctor.
Yeah, Jim Backus is the doctor at the end. It reminds me sort of, going to like another connected thread. It reminds me of how, do you remember when we talked about Porgy and Bess and how there was sort of just some bitter grapes, the auto Preminger. There was a reason why there were no close-ups in that movie.
Right.
And the movie suffered. The movie was all but unwatchable because it was just filmed in like a big open wide shots way. I feel like this movie reminds me in that way of sort of like regrettable choices made by filmmakers to because of things happening in the moment of what was going on. It was such a chaotic, production. It makes me wonder if like he didn't get enough good footage to make a complete movie. And maybe I'm just wondering if that's why.
No, that makes sense if they wasted that much time. I mean, it seems like
imagine
constantly.
Imagine. He's still alive. Michael Sarn is still alive.
Yeah, no, he's acted in some stuff, Of
course, we lost Raquel. We did lose Raquel just this last year, R.I.P.
Rex Reed's still around, though, right?
Rex Reed's still around, yeah. The version I saw that I watched is the DVD that I have. I don't know, maybe the other, because there's two versions on it. I watched the one with Raquel's commentary. I don't know if you got any commentary on yours, which really helped me. It really helped me understand what I was watching, but no, even in the commentary, Raquel tears this movie to shreds. It's so funny. She talks about how I don't think
she's that bad in it, except for the accent. You're right. Her voice is kind of much, but I think if it was just made by a better director or more time, it was handled correctly. Who knows whose fault it was, but it just could have been okay. It could have been good.
Yeah. Oh, it could have been really, really good. I wonder if something like this would ever get made again. Obviously, without the cutaways. What do you even call that? Is that kind of like, it's not Fellini? It's like it's Dream On. It's
like
it
really is Dream On. Before Dream On. Now, didn't Candy Darling want to be the?
Yeah,
that was that. Yeah. Okay.
I read that Candy Darling really lobbied hard for it, and they said, one thing I did kind of read too was that like Michael Sarn was like, a lot of his additions to the material came off really homophobic, and he was really sort of, that's just what I read though, it was that he was really kind of like contemptuous. He really, was trying to make fun of what he saw as the homosexual, the effete, the makeup guy, the whatever. And they, a lot of people in looking back at it said as much, that's sort of the critique, was that it didn't feel like a good depiction of some of the other sort of minor characters. The black guy, right? The really queeny black guy that has the makeup on. I guess that was supposed to be Richard Pryor. And I think he took the role, and Michael Sarn nixed him. He nixed Richard Pryor for that.
Oh shit.
You believe that? Like it's wild. And so, the version I saw, it had some of the DVD I saw, it had some of Raquel Welch's like.
Wait, Richard Pryor was supposed to be in this.
That's what it said.
Oh, so
man, the black guy that
Calvin Lockhart.
Correct.
Okay,
yeah, Calvin Lockhart. Yeah.
Oh,
he was supposed to be played by Richard Pryor. Can you imagine?
That would have been even more wild.
I want to see Mother Jugs and Speed. That one looks crazy. That one of Raquel's movies that I saw the preview of is called Mother Jugs.
Oh yeah, I know that movie. I've
never seen it, but I can already tell awesome. She doesn't. I don't think she plays Mother or Speed. I can already tell. No, but I would say Myra Breckinridge is up there in the realm. It's up there in the canon of, I would call it like movie oddities.
It's a famous disaster.
Disaster and just like an oddity. A really oddball picture that has a lot of that kind of chaotic element to it. You can just sort of feel it too. You can feel how erratic it kind of feels. And right. I feel like this movie, I don't know what they say, like this movie walked so Freeway 2 could run or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there wouldn't be bad movies with like strange choices. Like this movie has some really odd choices, there was a lot of praise for the book. Great. It was a high profile project. This was a really at the time. This was like all over the trades. It was talked about a lot. was a
Yeah,
very
the
high
book was
profile.
super famous. Now, we did an episode on Ed Wood, and
Correct.
didn't
Yeah.
they name Myra
Yep.
after Bunny Breckinridge?
That's what it said. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of the crazy, right? There's so
The
many
Ed
kind
Wood
of
has his hands and
intersecting.
everything.
I was gonna say this movie, yeah, it's like Plan 9, and it's like, huh, kind of factor. It's like, wait, the fuck, what is it? And I think
I
that
love that.
alone, it makes it. Yeah, so that's what Gore Vidal supposedly gave this character the name Breckinridge after Bunny Breckinridge, the transvestite in Ed Wood. Yeah, played by Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's got wild connections, and it can be, it's strange. It's hard to, where did you see it? Where you found it online, or because I was gonna say it is online. I did see a full version of it on YouTube.
I watched the version on YouTube, and that was the one that had the black and white ending.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I saw that was sort of, I guess that was the director's version. The one I saw was full color. The ending was in color too. Yeah,
Okay.
so apparently, it ends with Myron killing Myra in the street by running her over, and it was
But
about a
then it
dream.
turns into Myron as Rex Reed's laying on the ground. They actually pick up
Correct.
Rex Reed and put him in the
Yeah.
ambulance.
Yeah, so it's a movie with, like, I would say, like, broad strokes. In other words, it doesn't show you that, like, oh, he had a sex change back to being a man. He just sort of wakes up, and was it all a dream? Who knows? One thing I did read about the book was, even after this movie, there was a sequel that Gore Vidal wrote to the book
Oh,
called
okay.
Myron. It was just called Myron, and it was, it's too crazy to even get into that plot line. But yeah, very kind of wild and surrealist, even more so than this movie. And yeah, so the character does live on, but it does end in a very kind of, very like Altman Three Women kind of way, where you're just kind of like scratching your head at the end.
Yeah, because right
Maybe
when the
that was,
credits roll,
yeah.
you're in the exact same spot where that opening credit sequence was, but without Raquel Welch. Remember, he's standing there at
Yeah.
the very, and then the credits go up. So it does make
Yeah.
you wonder if that shot of when John Carradine, if
Because the
he,
nurse is there. Remember the
the
nurse that
nurse
winks?
with the winking, yeah.
Yeah, there's, so at the very, very beginning, yeah, the nurse, there's a very,
So
and I
now as we're
think,
talking, I think that's what it was. I mean, it's probably
yeah.
went over my head until we're talking about it. Yeah, yeah, it's probably what it was.
And I think that's what they said, was he was trying to be sort of Fellini-esque with it, as far as, like, in the beginning, it's the same actor, the same woman plays a nurse who has this weird wink at him, and then at the
Mm-hmm.
very end, she's one of the spectators that is looking over the body that, gets hit by the car in Century City, and then she does that same wink. And yeah, everything sort of goes back to then he wakes up.
You're right. That's such a cop out, like,
It's weird,
ending when they do
it's like,
that. Yeah.
what the fuck? It was all a dream. Yeah, so this movie, it's in that weird canon for a whole bunch of different reasons. There's so many things that happened with it. It broke ground. It really did. It broke ground. It's a big queer, canonical, up there kind of revered movie for some, but
Mm-hmm.
it does kind of remind me of, like, Carell, like the Fassbender Carell, where it's like,
Oh, you
what the
can.
fuck? It doesn't make no fucking sense, but it's sort of like one of the first queer pictures that really kind of was explicitly about that, and made by a big major studio like Fox. Which makes me wonder, does this mean that Myra Breckinridge is a Disney princess? No, I think
I
she
think
is.
you're right. Myra, we
Fucking
love you,
Myra.
Myra.
We love you, Myra, and Myron, but more Myra. I miss
Oh
Myra.
man, I thought those two had, like, okay chemistry with each other too. Like
Yeah,
Rex, yeah,
it's crazy.
so those two, I guess, actually did get along. And for somebody who constantly fought with her co-stars, when she did
Yeah.
like somebody, it does kind of come off. It is a shame the movie sucked or it didn't do well, because I really think it could have been good. Those two played
Yeah.
off each other pretty well. I don't know. It's kind of, yeah, I don't know.
And I think it sort of left a pall over Raquel. Like we were saying about Last of Sheila, Raquel came off very, like, touchy and very, like, uneasy and very insecure. I fuck, man, I would be too after making this movie, after seeing
Oh
how bad,
man.
that was one thing. This movie, when it came out, was universally wasn't there a riot at the premiere? There was
at the premiere.
There was a riot at the premiere, which is kind of like, what? Like this movie
Mae West was like, what the fuck is going on here?
Mae West.
She hasn't left her house in 40 years. So Raquel Welch went to go meet her before they filmed. And
she was not having her.
Yeah, she said like the place was like lit real low, but it had like what color was the lighting or something? It was like a colored lighting, and at like 25% that she came walking out.
Yeah,
and
everything was 20. All the bulbs were 25 watt, low watt pink bulbs, and
that's
you
it.
could tell she didn't want to be lit well, so she made sure of that and was just like she wouldn't work before 5 p.m. That was the other thing. Mae West would not work before 5 p.m. She would never show up to work before 5. Can you imagine?
I know. That's fucking unbelievable.
And they fought over that dress that Mae West said. They said that Mae West told Farrah Fawcett to get away from her because and said she doesn't do any scenes with any other blondes, and that Farrah had to go darken her hair. And then Raquel saw it, and Raquel got pissed off and made her relighten her hair, and there was like a back and forth. But that Raquel and her fought over this dress, that Raquel was not allowed to wear a black dress while Mae was wearing a white dress. Like basically, Mae West had control over the costumes, and she's used to filming in black and white, so she was real obsessed over those non-colors, and because she knew how they would show up, but she was thinking in the older school. She wasn't thinking in Technicolor. Right. That's basically what it came out to, so it's fascinating.
I mean, I don't know. When it comes to Mae West, I think if they would have gotten somebody else, that it could have been a lot better of a movie. I think if you would have just gotten like some type of camaraderie within the whole group, the whole cast,
Mae West being there.
I don't know.
There's just so much wrong. There's so much wrong with Mae West being there. I think too, like it reminds me of Freeway 2, how it's like, wait, what? Like that didn't need to, in other words, if certain parts of it happened, the movie, it wouldn't have changed nothing, I think that is really sort of what is glaring about this movie. It's kind of just filled with half stories that don't really materialize. And then all of a sudden Mae West has a musical number. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, why does Mae West have a musical number? And it's wild. She's just standing there shaking her old body. Like,
doing hard to handle. I was like, what the hell is she doing?
What the fuck is she doing? And she's got all these boys jumping around. She's always flanked by men at all times. At all times, she's flanked by muscular men, and she is always alluded to having sex with all of them. And, I got to say, like, for being that old, like, that takes guts. I think that takes guts to be like, you know what? Yep, I'm 77. I still like sex. I still want men around me. But you know what they did say, though, was that obviously a lot of people turned down the role of Myra Breckinridge, and a lot of people turned down the Letitia role, which is Mae West. But Mae West was heard saying about Raquel's role. She's like, oh, no woman would ever play that role. Like, in other words, no woman would ever play a transgender man or a transgender woman. And so, there's lots of stuff like that are so unwoke that they're funny. It's like, lady.
I mean, I get like getting Mae West and everything, but it was like 40 years since she's done any movies. She probably is like Norma Desmond a little bit, just probably lived in this shrine of herself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So she comes out, and it's like you have all these stupid demands, like 5 p.m. start times. You have to have these songs. Everyone has to wear certain color palettes around you. You're not going to share screen time with actors. I mean, how do you get away with these demands when you never left your house in 40 years?
Exactly. She still got top billing for this movie. If you look at it all, even though Raquel Welch plays the title character, Mae West has the top billing. Mae West is billed first before everybody. Before John Huston, she's billed before John Huston, and she's billed before Raquel Welch, and they're both billed before Raquel Welch. So,
and John Huston at least has fun in it, like, I don't know. I kind of like their all those characters and the fighting with Myra and everything.
Yeah. Well, he kind of, and there was a sort of intimation towards the end of his scenes when he's getting like a rub down. Oh yeah. And all of a sudden at one point he's getting a rub down by this black woman, and the black woman's like biting his old wrinkly back. Like, what the fuck? So gross. But of course he's always getting a massage. And so he's all like, Oh, I'm glad I didn't slip her the Buck Loner special,
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
oh God. Like he finds out about her transgenderness, and it's like, it's before the crying game, I'm just trying to think of other movies that this sort of, beat to the punch when it comes to this topic.
And they went pretty extreme with it,
oh
they
yeah,
definitely did.
this one's extreme. I would say even for, I mean, dare I say, even for today, it's a little extreme,
Oh yeah,
as
yeah. I
you
mean,
just don't see major studios bankrolling this kind of story anymore.
like think about the crying game for a second. Like, of course, yeah, they could easily make, you could make a studio picture of that
Yeah.
today. It might be
Oh
a
yeah.
little bit tamer. Who knows how they'd handle the political side and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's
I
nothing too
actually
hard in it.
I saw a really good I meant to tell you, I saw a really good flick. It's the new one with Kristen Stewart. It's called Love Lies Bleeding.
Is that the
And
bodybuilder?
yeah, it's like a
Okay.
lesbian bodybuilder gore action crime thriller. Really good. I will say
Okay.
one of the best movies I've seen so this year so far. Really, actually really good. I was shocked at how much I actually enjoyed it nonstop. It was really, really good.
Oh yeah, I've been seeing a lot of advertisement for that. I just recently watched. I was going to tell you. I just watched on HBO Quiet on Set, the Nickelodeon
Oh,
documentary.
I saw that too.
I was like, oh,
I
of
wanted to
course.
call, because is it weird? I thought of Deb, because didn't Deb say that she worked on some of those Nickelodeon shows?
One of them maybe.
I feel like she did. I didn't want to reach out to her and be like, "Hey, were you have you seen this show?"
Did you work
But
with Brian Peck or whatever that guy's
did you
name
work
is?
with Brian Peck? Oh my God. And you know what's so weird is I thought for sure that guy was probably, I thought, is that the guy Josh Peck's like older brother or something? But it's not. He's not.
Oh,
It's just a coincidence that he was buggering.
crazy shit. But again, none of that
So
was like
wild.
shocking though.
Oh no.
Like,
You know what?
yeah.
I think what was kind of shocking was that frankly, the parents were all, if I'm not mistaken, and if I heard what I heard, the parents were all on set practically. There was somebody there for
It
each one
seemed
of
like there
these
were only
kids.
like throughout like the 20-year golden age of Nickelodeon, only like two parents ever opened their mouths. It seemed like
But they were
every
all, but what I'm saying is they were all there though. That's what
yeah,
I mean is
yeah.
all of these kids on these shows had some kind of form of a guardian on set, and that I think is what makes the title of it really more powerful, is that it really was about the quiet on set. In other words, like, why
Mm-hmm.
didn't anybody say anything? And it I like this documentary because it gets into, yeah, it makes sense. If you're the mother of one of these kids and you see how they treat the parents who are, too uppity and can't take a joke, of course you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to say shit. You're just going to be like, doo doo doo, I didn't see nothing,
Well,
until your
yeah,
kid comes and tells you.
once you're in, it's a weird thing. I mean, I don't have kids, thankfully. I couldn't
Yeah.
handle the child star thing because it's like you're
Right.
kind of trapped, because if you take them out, they're going to hate you, and if you keep them
Yeah.
in, they're eventually
Yep.
going to hate you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what do you do? And then you got to hope there's no creeps around them, and
Oh yeah.
it's
And there
fucking
always
nuts.
are. There always are.
Yeah,
That's the thing, is there always. Yeah, that was a good one. I binged it. That was good.
it's just weird when you see like no,
Oh,
that's like I said, they should you just see
the
pictures.
playbacks of, or like
Yeah,
the playbacks of the sketch they did, because we're talking about this. He was trying to do a kids or a tweens
yeah, that's what I'm
Saturday
saying.
Night
Like they're all
Live.
like
It
act
was
like they're like
sketches
doing cum
with,
shots,
they're
and
doing cum. Oh my
it's
God,
like
they're
fucking
doing.
crazy,
Yeah, like
man.
Ariana Grande is like sucking on toes, and like it invariably some girl gets some kind of viscous fluid shot across her face, and it's it's glue or it's slime or it's whatever, but it's still very
Like one
very
thing is shit
obvious.
going
It's very
on behind the
obvious.
scenes, though. One thing's that going on behind the
Exactly.
scenes, but when you see that on TV, like I didn't watch
Hmm.
Nickelodeon during that time.
I
This is
never
like
watched
early
that
two
shit.
thousands. We were a little bit older, so like when if you were watching Nickelodeon, even
Yeah.
as like a 13-year-old or whatever, you would have seen that. You would have been like. I would have been, you would have been like, oh
No
my God,
one.
this is
Yeah.
like so fucking like Ariana Grande, like pouring water all over on her
Yep.
bed. I was like, God damn, this is like total porn.
Totally. I mean, it's so obvious. I thought it was obvious.
Yeah, yeah, I did too. I was like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, that's crazy. But
But what's crazy is they let that guy Brian Peck back in to the fold
Disney,
after he like did time for sodomizing Drake Bell. he was allowed back on to work with one.
Went to prison and got
Jesus Christ,
convicted pedophile. And it's like you're at Disney. I'm like, oh,
fucking
awesome.
Hollywood, fucking Hollywood, man, Holly weird.
That's so fucking crazy.
This, so yeah, Myra Breckinridge is in that vein of Holly weird. If
just
you
a
can't
circus.
take it,
it's a circus.
It's
and
an unwoke circus.
It is. And as much as there's pushback and everything, in the end, it's like it's thirst for power and everything. And out here. And sometimes you're just going to do what somebody else isn't. And that's where it goes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and also it's very like you're replaceable. It's like if you're not going to do the cum shot face thing that we're telling you, there's like 10 other girls and waiting to do that.
Yeah, especially these are like Orange County kids. Could you imagine like when there's like poor parents there? They're gonna like get in there and take that cum shot.
Do what you got to do. They want to put super glue in my hair. Go ahead. Yeah, like they put the black kids with like charcoal face paint, just like totally screwing them all over, putting them. Oh
yeah, they made that one black kid like act like he was a drug dealer selling selling donuts or whatever. He was like, God,
yeah, wow,
fucking crazy. Oh yeah, the amount of money they got paid though, my parents would have been like, shut your fucking mouth and get in there.
Shut your mouth and take that on your
face.
Get
over Brian Peck's house. Call him Uncle Brian.
Yeah,
keep your mouth shut.
Pretty wild. I would say with that one, even there was even a girl who just was like, it didn't seem like anything terrible happened to her, but she was like, I could see I was replaced, and just having that feeling of being replaceable and being not good enough. It's like that's sort of the business. I mean, that's the business of it. But
when you're like a young kid, they don't let you. They don't even. I don't know. It's kind of fucked up. This whole child acting thing is fucked up. They're just not ready for it. It's like because you're doing this is your everyday job. You're like 4 or 5 years of your life when you're a teenager. It's like the bulk of your life. And then this dude's just like gaslighting you every day, like making you think like everything's great and everything's bad. And you're fucking, oh man, you're like popping pills and drunk by the time you're 18.
All of them are. All of the ones that they featured had some kind of like problem now, was dealing with some kind of alcoholism or some kind of like their own domestic violence and shit like that.
Man, I feel so bad for child actors when they show them now and they look like they're a wreck. You're like, oh no, you didn't make it.
You aged. It's like, oh shit.
Oh God. Like Drake Bell, when it was all about the kid who got sodomized, he was, he looked okay. He looked like he was starting to be, he just recently got, it said he
but he had his own episode. He had his own thing. Like he ended up having his own clash where he held somebody against their will, or there was some kind of domestic.
He was sending inappropriate texts to an underage girl. They said something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Where it's like he kind of was repeating the cycle.
Yeah, it's like it's crazy, right? It repeats. That's what's so nuts. It breeds evil on you, or I don't know. It's fucked up. It's fucked up.
It's a good title for it though, for sure. It is. It's about the quiet on the set.
It's 4 episodes. It's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, it's on Max. It's on HBO Max.
That's right. Because they threw as much shade on Disney as they could, if you noticed. Yeah,
for sure.
That was funny.
It was well made. It was definitely well made, and for its topic, it's like, sorry, but that was a good show.
Yeah, no, it was.
Hate to say it, but it was a good show. Sorry, all that happened to you, though.
Does Nickelodeon still exist? Like, what's the deal? Is that still around? Because
I don't know.
Yeah,
I have no idea. Know. I don't fucks with it, as the kids say. I don't know. I feel like the kids today are making their own content, and they're not sitting at home, watching shit anymore. They're all on TikTok. They're all like making their own shit. They're all out there on their own, making their own podcasts, their own.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, what you've all been waiting for, the Man Killer.
The moment of truth has finally arrived.
The book that couldn't be written is now the motion picture that couldn't be made. Myra Breckinridge.
I'll be right with you, boys. Get your resumes out.
Memo to Flagler and Flagler, attorneys. Dear Charlie. Honey, that feels real good. Hey, what's your name, honey?
I'm Myra Breckinridge.
You have a lot to learn.
Oh, you men have a lot to learn. And I've taken it upon myself to teach you. I'm the widow of your late nephew, Myron, and I've come to collect $500,000. Myron's mother said, with her dying breath, go to your Uncle Buck and you tell that son of a bitch that I've got a copy of the will and I want my share to go to you.
You realize once you cut it off, it won't grow back. Great bunch of boys here. Of course, you get the occasional weirdo, like anywhere, but greatest bunch of kids in Hollywood.
You have all the kinky angles that are in right now. I mean, have you any that I don't know about?
Oh, Letitia.
What about studs?
They don't call you the queen of the casting couch for nothing. How should a man act?
He should ball chicks, that's how.
Let's just have a nice, girly evening, and I'll tell you how I lost my virginity. You tell me how you lost yours.
If only you were a man.
You can't tell the wolf from Little Red Riding Hood these days.
Because this Myra Breckinridge is more than a match for most men.
Don't miss the most sensational scene in the history of the screen.
Not there. Am I a boy or a girl?
Can't tell from here.
Myra Breckinridge is a dish. And don't you ever forget it.
Here I come!
Everything you've heard about Myra Breckinridge is true.